Right, greetings everybody. Robin here from Courage is the Cure. Welcome to another special report, a weekend report from Relentless. Today we're going to be talking about the Marinus Link in Tasmania, the cost and the consequences. I'll see you all in a jiffy. Alrighty, greetings everybody. Like I said, welcome to episode 133 of Relentless. Today we're going to be talking about the Marinus Link in Tasmania, the costs and the consequences. We have a full deck today with wonderful people who have very kindly given their time to come and talk about this issue today. I do have another wonderful co-host with me today. It is Martine Shepherd. Of course, she's an environmental protection and marine science coastal zone management specialist and the campaign coordinator for Save Our Beloved Geograph Bay and presenter of a very own podcast, Martini's Eco and Country Bites. My great pleasure to welcome Martine Shepherd once again. Hello, Martine.
Hi, Robin. How are you?
Fancy seeing you again on the weekend.
How's it there? It's a balmy 43, 44 degrees in the shade here at the moment.
Thank you so much for joining us. Now, as I said, we do have a full deck this afternoon for the show. We are here to talk about the Marinus Link. We have Terry Chandler with us, Hort and Wade Rockliff. And we're going to be talking about one of the most contentious pieces of energy infrastructure in the country, and that is the Marinus Link in Tasmania. Let's bring on our guests and get on with it. Let me introduce, first of all, Terry Chandler. He's a small business landowner in Tasmania. Hello, Terry. How are you?
G'day. How you going?
Fantastic. Thank you for joining us today.
Yep,
We also have Wade Rockliff, and he's a fourth generation farmer from Sheffield in Tasmania. Hello, Wade. How are you?
Hello, Martine. Well, thanks. Sorry, Robin, isn't it? Yes.
It's both of us.
And our last wonderful, generous person from Tasmania is Hort, engineer and marine master. We've just lost Al as well. I'll put the screen there. When he pops back, we'll bring him back on, but Al is here as well. So this is such a huge issue, as I said, with the Marinus Link. You go along to Light Australia issue, what was it? Issue 20. Martine Shepherd wrote an article about it. Martine, over to you. Where should we start? And, of course, let's take advantage of the wonderful gentleman we have here with us to talk about it.
Well, I think that, this conversation has been a long time coming. I'm sure the gentlemen that are here to talk to us, Wade, Terry and Al, I would regard as the experts, but they're individuals that I've heard about and spoken about for some time. So to kind of see their faces in person is such a relief, because putting a face to those that are working so hard on the ground there in Tasmania to push back against Marinus Link. Because again, just like this federal government has gone ahead and making plans to cause such incredible destruction to vital agriculture, cause instability perhaps in our electricity grid, and certainly, as the article read, it's the umbilicus to the mainland, where, you know, Victoria is going to be like propping up the rest of Victoria and Australia for energy because of these renewables. And a lot's got to do with the fact that people don't understand that this is all connected back to artificial intelligence and hubs for that. So these individuals have been caught in the middle of all that, and for a long time I've wanted to bring them all together. And I'm so grateful, thank you gentlemen, for coming on board and talking to myself and Robin to put forward just the diabolical plan that's planned for you, and so little consultation yet again.
Maybe we'll go to Wade first. We've got, obviously, this is Google Maps aerial view from Tasmania to the mainland for Marinus Link. I'll also just pop up on the screen Wade's property. These are photos from Wade's property. Wade, can you talk to us about what these pictures mean and what Marinus Link means for you and your situation?
Yes, Robin. Well, I suppose we're like a lot of other landowners in Australia that, you know, it's not only do they want to build wind and solar farms, but they've got to export the power to and from them to populated areas, and of course that means trans lines through properties. So that's probably what we're looking at on part of our property. There's big new shiny trans line that's going to come through the farm, you know, 40 or 50 metres high. As you can see, those views are pretty specky in front of Mount Roland there. It's not going to look real flash with 6 big thick aluminium power lines and huge towers there. So yeah, that's where we're at. I mean, in all honesty, Robin, if we thought it was going to be good for the next generations of Tasmanians and good for Tasmania and maybe, you know, and didn't affect the environment that much, we could probably wear it, because we know that, you know, things expand, populations grow, but for this line to come through our farm, it's basically just to service foreign-owned wind and solar farms that are back behind us, and basically transport their power. They're using our farm as a corridor to get their power to the mainland, so they can make these massive profits they're talking about. And that's really what's grinding our gears. We think, you know, that these foreign offshore wind and solar operators, they're not contributing 1 red cent to any of this infrastructure, Marinus or the Northwest Transmission Development that's coming through our farm. They're not putting 1 cent towards it, yet they're getting all the benefit from it. And they don't care. They don't care what happens to the environment or to you know, any of our endangered species of birds in this state. It's just all about profit. And yeah, it just seems to be they've got so much power over our political parties in this state. We're only a small state, you know, and our party donations to our major political parties, the way that's portrayed to us is very lax, and we don't know where these party donations are coming from. But you've got to wonder why they're so hell bent on looking after these foreign corporates and putting them before everyday Tasmanians. So yeah, you know, it's going to be sad to see this line going through our farm, but way sadder to see what's going to happen to the environment down here, because, you know, basically to justify the $6.5 billion build of Marinus and the Northwest Transmission Development, they've got to put hundreds, if not thousands, of wind generators in this state. And that's what really bugs us. You know, what are we leaving? So what are we leaving for our kids? You know, what's the legacy we're leaving in this state? Yeah, so we hope, we're not sure if we can stop it or not, but we'll sure give it a good go. Yeah.
Well, I know that most of Australia is really waking up to this absolute swindle and scam, Wade. So I know that I'm sure Terry and Al have got a lot to contribute to this further conversation, because from the flyover, when people go to marinuslink.com, you can see the flyover, and 2/3 or at least half of Tasmania is going to be affected by this green renewables plan in some way. Either it's going to be part of the green renewables actual energy grid, or solar arrays, or wind turbine farms. That's an insult to farming, but wind turbine areas, and to lose all of that. I mean, I just can't believe it. Tasmania is our last wilderness area that people just love and treasure for that, and it hurts me. It breaks my heart. I haven't even had a chance to get down to Tassie, and I just think that it's going to be turned into this industrialized zone for foreign corporations. Again, it's just like the lunacy of this to put all of that at risk, and especially with the coming out of the asbestos that's coming out of the blades in the wind turbines that's been discovered. PFAS. I mean, there's so much organic farming there. That's what Tassie's known for, and this hurts my heart. You know, coming from farming stock myself, and to see this happening to farmers, it's diabolical and it's dystopian. And like you said, Wade, you know, we don't really want this foreign infrastructure, you know, infiltrating and taking over our area.
You're spot on, and it gets worse because a lot of these wind farms are going in environmental areas of huge, environmental value. And just, you know, I was only saying to my wife about it. Our wedge-tailed eagles in this state are endemic to the state. They're much bigger than the mainland birds, and there's only probably, Parks are saying there's probably only 300 breeding pairs left in the state. And, you know, when you think about it, these wind farms all over the state, for me, they're like a ghost net. And I don't know if your listeners know what a ghost net is, but just to explain it, it's a net left in the water by unscrupulous, mostly commercial fishermen that just floats around the ocean and kills thousands and thousands of fish, you know, thousands of sea life. It's just there, not contributing much, but causing you know, mayhem. And that's what I think these wind farms are. They're more or less a ghost net in the sky, because these old birds cruise around. They have been for thousands and thousands of years, and the biggest obstacle they got was probably an 80-metre high, you know, gum tree. One of our stringy barks, or mountain ash, as you call them on the mainland. Now all of a sudden they've got these trees that are 200 metres higher than our tallest tree, and their branches are swinging around doing 300 kilometres an hour. You know, so what hope are we giving them? And that's pretty sad.
Absolutely. We seem to have lost Martine. She did warn us before we went live, everybody, that her battery was about to die. So I think we have lost Martine there. It's absolutely astounding, I have to say, especially, I mean, I just had up on the screen there the 3D video. I'll add it to the stage once more, moving around Tasmania with all of the proposals for the renewables. I mean, this footage alone is astounding. Now, I noticed we've also got some Google footage, or screenshots, I should say, from Terry's property. I'm just going to pop that up here. Terry, can you talk to us about this? Is transmission lines on, well, that would be on your property. Can you talk to us about where you are and more about
Yeah.
the lines?
Yeah, sure. So, so I'm like, I'm an entirely new transmission line, and I've only got a small lot, which is part of the pasture that you can see at the top, and then it's mostly all forest right down to that very first transmission line. Well, the tower, the transmission tower. So it kind of cuts right through the middle of my land, right near where the creek is, Chasm Creek, which is a really unique creek system in the north of Tasmania as well. It's got the giant freshwater crayfish, which they left off their environmental report quite conveniently. But anyway, yeah, it runs right through the middle of my land, which I've got about 17 acres. So it's not massive, but as is, I've got beautiful 360-degree views. I can see Flinders Island down the coast, ocean views, 10 minutes out of town. You know, got all my amenities just at the bottom of the hill. And they've only offered me about $130,000 to run these lines through it, which is just absolutely ludicrous. It's like it feels like a big land grab to me. And like what Wade was saying, yeah, it's they're being propped up by a government and basically, yeah, all these foreign-owned vampire companies are going to come in and just reap benefits off our land while we get left in the lurch to pay for it all. Not only by higher power bills and all the rest of it, everything's going to go up in price, and then and us as landholders lose our land property values as well. So yeah, and those lines are massive, as you can see on the diagram. I mean, I think they were predicting 45 to 65 meters high. So they want to go over the tops of the trees that are already, you know, the ones that are on my place are a good 40 to 50 meters high. And yeah, so speaking to one of the guys that actually runs a wind farm down here, he was saying that they'll say that they're 60 up to 65, but he reckons they'll be more like 80 meters high because of the terrain, because it's Chasm Creek, so it's a very chasmous area. So, you know, it's absolutely devastating. I've also heard as well that I think there was another 4 or 5 lines they have in the plan for Tasmania. So not only just one, but another 4 of them to go across the strait. It's just, yeah, it's totally devastating, to be honest.
Just one, you know, because obviously, you know, you just mentioned there, you know, the offshore companies and being offered 130,000 to have these lines run through the middle of your property, it being a land grab. I don't know who of the three of you might be the best person, because there's also.
Can I add to that too? So
Yeah.
the other thing too, it's not necessarily a land grab, so to speak, but from my understanding, if they run the lines, they're trying to get an easement through my land, which will completely devalue it. And then they still want me to pay tax on that land that they're making money off. So I not only get devalued land, but I still have to pay for that patch of land in taxes for them to make money off it. It's just, I don't know, it just seems so backwards to me, to be honest. It's horrible. So
What about the environmental? That's interesting. How does that happen? We also have the the problems with the the noise pollution, the vibrations, the EMF from turbines, and also particularly with Marinus Link. Let's not forget this is running through the ocean. Would somebody like to speak to the health implications as well, not only for humans but marine life, of course, your stock as well?
I think Al's probably pretty good at explaining that one.
Mm-hmm.
If you can hear me.
Don't mean to throw you under the bus or anything, but you seem to explain it really well. So
I think we're having problems with Al's connection. Can you hear us, Al?
Yeah, you're coming and going.
Yeah. Could you talk to us about the effects on animal health and human health when we're talking about wind farms and the Marinus Link?
No.
Computer says no. Well, Wade, Terence, it's up to one of you.
I'll give it a go.
I'm not all that versed on it, Robin, but from what Al said, like they've proven that under these wind farms, with the vibrations and the electrical electromagnetic fields that irradiates not only from the farms but from the trans lines, you get biological dead zones under them. So it affects the biodiversity in your soils on the farms. This is information that's come out of Europe. Even like you don't realise, but there's millions and millions of worms on your farm doing a lot of work for you that really adds benefit to your soils and things. And they're saying that under these wind farms that they're just void of any worms at all. So it's really interesting what's some of the research that's coming out of Europe and places like that. But yeah, and of course, like, in these places in Tasmania, which are pretty untouched environments, and you've got all these poly carbonate shards coming off the blades, and as Martine said, the brakes and these things are asbestos, and that's coming from a great height, so it's dissipating out over the countryside. And yeah, it's amazing if you go into one of these big trans lines, for instance, with an old fluoro light at night, they'll light up. So that goes to prove how much electrical current's in the air. So that obviously the proponents say none of that'll hurt you, and who's to know? But I think when you've got a fluoro light lighting up in the middle of the night, it can't be good for the environment. There's been studies done that especially breeder cattle that you've got for 10 or 15 years that are living under these trans lines do have there's more sort of cancerous lesions on these animals. So that's probably something that's a little bit out of my field, even though I'm a farmer. But this is some of the research that I said that I've read about coming out of Europe. But yeah, the main effect for us in Tassie is what these things are doing to our birds of prey. And if this thing gets up, and say for instance, we've got this island up in our northwest corner called Robbins Island. It's a magnificent island. It's actually where a lot of the shorebirds that migrate from the northern hemisphere come when they first come to Tassie, and they have their rest stop. This is where they land. So they come all the way from northern Europe, including mutton birds, the shearwaters, and there's a lot of really rare shorebirds that come in there. I can't quite remember that the people that started the area had this. Oh, it was just ridiculous how many breeds of bird fly in there, and they've got planned 50 of these 210 metre wind generators for this island. All on the back of Marinus. This is all going in because these foreign companies are going to put. This is a Filipino company that's going to put that one there called ASIN. And here's these birds that have been flying in there for thousands and thousands of years, and all of a sudden they've got 50 of these 210 metre wind generators to traverse. It's just absolutely ludicrous what we've got happening down here. And sadly, a lot of people aren't across it because we've had a few other issues in the state, like the stadium, and that's taken all the limelight away from things like Marinus. But yeah, I don't know if it's been a diversion on purpose or not, this stadium, but gosh, what's going on with Marinus and the deals that have been done with these foreign corporates is just unbelievable. And the ones we've got 4 already here. And you talk about environment, those 4 farms have already killed 32 eagles, and that's already been documented. And one of those farms is supposed to have the best technology. The Chinese-owned Cattle Hill Wind Farm is supposed to have the state-of-the-art technology, and they said when they built that farm that they guaranteed that no birds would be, killed by
That's what we're told about too.
Yeah, and yet
Apparently.
they've killed 8 of them. So, that's 8 with the best of technology in the world. We've only got 300 breeding pairs of these birds, and they've already taken 30 of them out, and they're only the ones documented, Robin. We don't know how many have gone that haven't been documented. Like, for instance, Woolnorth is owned by the Chinese as well. That's a big wind farm right up in our northwest corner. They're saying there's been none killed up there. It's hard to believe because it's an area that's endemic with eagles, and they're on this. Maybe it's because these wind generators are on the edge of huge cliffs up there, and they're not finding them. But you've got to wonder whether they're even documenting them when they do. I really wonder, because these farms know that there's ramifications if a bird does, or there's supposed to be ramifications if a bird does get killed by their turbines. So, if you're working there and you find one, well, you might think, well, we'll save our company a few bucks and get rid of it somewhere else. That's only my opinion. That's the big one for me, the damage they're going to do to our birds of prey.
I don't think those fines are big enough either. I think those big companies would just laugh at the bill.
They would, because I think the maximum fine is $200,000, and I worked the day that if they're getting say they're getting $200 or $300 a megawatt hour at night for these wind farms across Bass Strait for their power they're generating, they're basically one of these big farms that's pumping out 300 megawatts is going to pay for it in half a day. So, if they get rid of, say for instance, St Patrick's Plains wind farm is supposed to be about 300 megawatts, and they know that there's about 5 breeding pairs of birds in the vicinity of that farm. Well, it's only going to be 5 days and they're paid their fine. So you're right, Terry. It's nowhere near enough what their maximum fine is for killing these birds.
Totally. I'd like to also just about the Robbins Island thing, and the migratory birds. What you're saying is amazing, but like those birds also, they fly all the way. They stop in New Zealand to nest and feed, or just feed, and they fly all the way up through Siberia and past up near America. They nearly fly almost halfway around the world, and our government's got a pretty good track record of keeping our native species of life, haven't they? But so all I'm saying is that won't only affect, you know, Robbins Island and our environment here, but they'll be damaging ecosystems all the way around the globe. So I think they're taking on a new feat in environment destruction.
Oh yeah, you're spot on, Terry. Yeah. When you look at it like that, we're affecting other ecosystems as well.
Yep.
It seems to me that the government's priorities are a little bit skewed, to put it politely. I mean, at the moment, you know, I've been doing a lot of coverage about this social media ban, and big tech platforms will have a $45 million fine from the E-Safety Commissioner per breach. And what was the figure you just said, Wade, there for killing wildlife? And they can make it back in 2 days?
I think the maximum fine is $200,000 for an eagle in Tasmania.
Unbelievable. That's how skewed our government's priorities are, I would suggest.
Yeah, it is. You know, and you talk about social media, and we did touch on it. Martine did touch on earlier about AI and AI data centres, you know, and our government's saying in this state that we need more power and therefore we've got to build Marinus, which is total rubbish. And yet, and this is how like hypocritical they are. They're saying we need more electricity to provide more jobs for Tasmanians, and they've got a plan to put a data centre. It's already started, actually, the one in Launceston, in northern Tasmania. The data centre they're proposing, it's already up and going, but they're going to build on. They're going to increase its capacity. By the time it's finished, it's going to use 300 megawatts of power. So our biggest hydro generator in this state, which we're famous for our hydroelectric scheme in Tasmania, our second biggest generator is the Martini Power Station, and that runs off Great Lakes. So the Great Lakes is on the central plateau of Tasmania. It's a massive piece of water, massive piece of infrastructure. It took years and years to build, and yet, so that power station makes 300 megawatts. So this AI data centre is going to use everything and more that power station can pump out, and that data centre is going to provide maybe 50 jobs, but there's a fair indication when, you know, something's called artificial intelligence that it's not going to employ many people. So, you know, Robin, that's the hypocrisy going on down here in Tasmania. It's just unbelievable what our government's getting away with, and we just can't work out why.
Yeah, with the AI things, if you don't mind if I jump in there, yeah, there's like an initial crew to build these stations, and then once they're up and running, there's only like a skeleton crew that run them at the end. So there's, you know, it's not like like they probably explain it. There would be like 150 jobs. Make it sound like that it'll be a forever job for someone. It's not. It's just until it's established, and then it might be 10 or 20 or whatever people that run it. So it's a bit of a misconception, I think, with the amount of jobs created.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's okay. We've got Al's communicating with me in the comments because we're having trouble with his connection. So Al has said, and it's on the screen, the US have a mandatory 5-year jail sentence for killing eagles. They're now looking to push this onto turbine companies who kill eagles. And I'll just add on top of that as well, the US has halted their wind turbine projects because, of course, the turbines themselves interfere with the military and their communications. So, you know, wake up Australia, as Martine would say. Sorry, Wade. Over to you.
Yeah, I was just going to say, well, on the back of what Terry said, when when they put up the Marinus proposal, they threw out all these figures for jobs of over 2,000 jobs, it'll provide to. But for Tasmania, like Terry said, it's only reconstruction jobs. And as far as Tasmania goes, most of these jobs coming in, they're pretty one skilled in the fact that, for instance, the Northwest Transmission Development, there'll be mostly mainland crews coming in. And for the actual building of these wind farms, the wind farms that are here now, they've brought in crews from the mainland because it's a specific type of work, I suppose, and it's a specific skill that these crews that come in have got. So there's not that great a many. There's not many jobs for Tasmanians, and yeah, it's sort of people buy into that, but once they're up, for instance, Cattle Hill Wind Farm, as far as I know, that's about from memory, it's 220 megawatts. It's quite a big farm. It's 30 turbines, if I remember rightly. Between 4 and 6 people are employed there. And one of the reasons they're employed there is to count the eagles bouncing off the blades. That's part of their job, is to go around every day and just check for any birds of prey that have pinged off their blades. So, yeah, there's not these modern machines now. They're saying they've got a 40-year life. So they're that well, especially the German manufacturer, so well built. There's not a great deal of maintenance involved in them anymore. Not like the early machines. So there's not many jobs.
Can I jump just to add to the jobs things too? I think there was something said a while ago that there's a huge, there will be a huge bottleneck in skilled tradesmen to even get these projects completed in time, because there's not enough electricians, there's not enough electro engineers to even do these projects efficiently. So where are they going to get all these people from? They might even fly them in from overseas. I mean, you got to look into that too.
They're bringing 4 or 5 visa workers, no doubt. They do brewer and places like that now, so that there's a good chance they will. And they've been spruiking, apprenticeships and one thing and another in Tasmania for all these jobs, and really playing the sell game. But yeah, I'm fairly cynical, I suppose, but I don't think it'll eventuate into much. The thing about Tassie, I was just going to say, Robin, one of the great things about Tassie that not many people know is we're carbon negative, because we spent 100 years building an energy system which is based around hydro, and because of all our magnificent forests here in Tasmania, we're carbon negative. So that means Tasmania is one of the few places in the world that makes more oxygen than it does carbon dioxide. And the only other places my research can tell me where this happens is Bhutan and Panama. They're currently carbon negative. They've got populations similar to Tasmania, but they're not at all. Neither of those are autonomous islands like we are. They've probably got, a tenth of our GDP per capita. So we're an industrialised island that's carbon negative. I mean, we've got everything the rest of the world wants. We're doing it. And that's what's going to make Tasmania, well, I hate to say it, but great, but that's what we should be leveraging Tassie off. We should be leveraging off the fact that we're carbon negative, and we should be putting a welcome mat out to industries in the world that want to sell their products on the back of that. We should be saying, look, it might be a cosmetics company that sell, clean green image. It might be a shoe company. It might be a movie company. It's something that's completely out of the realm that we haven't sort of expected here in the past. We can do that. We can bring them here. They can use this clean green image and sell it to the world. But if we go with Marinus, we're going to be importing dirty energy, because one thing about Marinus is the import-export cable. So we send power to the mainland at night for all these ridiculous wind farms, and then and our hydro power, which we've bought and paid for and spent 100 years building, and then through the day they'll supposedly import their clean energy into us. But what they're not telling us is the mainland states that we're pulling energy from are still 60% fossil fuel. So those big coal generators, they're not as dispatchable as say hydro, where you can turn a tap on and make electricity. Those big coal generators are built to run at near capacity all the time. If they try to vary the speed or the capacity, those things break. They cool down too quick, they break. So what's happening at the moment is they're dumping power. They're sending it to Earth because they're being undercut by renewables on the mainland. So therefore, the market says, well, we'll send this power that's going to Earth, being wasted on the mainland through the day. We'll send it to Tassie, and then at night, when our solars and winds aren't working, we'll get maybe some of their wind power and their hydro. But so what I'm trying to say is, it's already been proven. Hobart, Tasmanian University's professors have said, and so has Newcastle's environmental professors have said, that if Marinus gets up, Tasmania loses its carbon negative status, because we'll be importing dirty energy back into Tasmania from the mainland. And that's the one point of difference, the one hope Tasmania's got, of keeping its kids here and having a future. Because at the moment, I mean, my kids have gone to the mainland to find work. A lot of others have too, because unless you're into, aged healthcare in Tasmania or healthcare in general, there's a bit going on, but there's not a lot, So that's part of the reason that we're sort of against Marinus as well, because Tasmania's got something very unique going on on a world stage, and not many people know about it, and the government's not pushing it. I mean, that should be what the government's pushing. That should be up in lights, say, come here and do business. We're carbon negative, but they don't want to push it because they know when Marinus is built, we'll lose that status.
Well, I just want to add here for people who aren't aware about Marinus Link. The Marinus Link itself was approved while the Tasmanian Government was in caretaker mode, and this is an historical event, because usually things like this, no major decisions, commitments or appointments should be made while a government is in caretaker mode. So that's something that people should be aware of. What about public consultation? Perhaps Terry or Al, if you can hear us and talk.
I just want to add on the caretaker mode thing too. So apparently their economic report for Marinus was so heavily redacted. There was like entire pages blurted out of it, entire graphs and of the likes. And they still haven't released all that information. So you really have to ask, why have they done this? I mean, if they were happy and proud about it, they'd just release all the information, wouldn't they? And go, have a look at how good this project is for Tasmania. So you can clearly see there's a bit of, they know it's not, they know it's a dud deal for Tasmania's economy and our best interests. I know you guys have been to a number of meetings. When we do finish the show, we'll be playing a video where all three gentlemen on the screen today, Terence, Wade and Al, did speak at a meeting, and I'll play that later. But as far as community consultation, has it been, because we've seen in Western Australia, when we're talking about the offshore wind turbine proponents coming here and consulting the community, it was essentially just a box ticking exercise, and they weren't consulting the community at all. They were informing them what they were going to do. What's the community consultation been like in regards to Marinus Link?
Yeah, Robin, you're spot on. It's exactly the same here. It's bloody embarrassing, really, but we wanted to see what was about and what was going on, and we had a community consultation meeting, like you say, a box ticking sort of a show. And it wasn't a meeting; you weren't allowed to speak, or you could ask questions to an individual. And there were pictures up on the walls of kids running through fields with butterflies and things like that. But the people that were running the consultation were, some of them were university graduates. They didn't know a lot about the development, but like you said, it looked good, but really didn't achieve anything. I asked questions about what is the relevance, of Marinus, what's so good for Tasmania and things like that, and they just couldn't answer our questions. It was pretty sad, really. And yet and we actually had people go. They've been doing the local agricultural shows in Tasmania that have a bit of a setup there, the Marinus Link crowd, and we've asked our friends to go up and, what feedback to farmers, and they've been telling these people that all the farmers are on board and think it'll be great for Tasmania and things like this. So, yeah, it's, to us, it's just been an absolute sham. An absolute sham.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Wade. They definitely, how can I say it? They performed it very well. The Tas networks they had, they obviously stretched the whole day out so that people could trickle in, so they didn't get an overload of people. But they also made sure they had enough employees in there to whisk everyone away on their own and stopped people from talking to each other and just asked people questions in secret. So I think that was one of their divide and conquer tactics.
Yeah, you're right, Terry.
Well, what do you mean they took people? You mean?
Well, basically, they had so many employees in there. There was basically enough for one Tas Networks employee per person coming in to be consulted or told what's going on, so that none of the landholders could actually get a chance to talk to each other and maybe go, oh, this project's horrible, or this is what they've got in store for me, and start basically stamping the fire out from the opposition at the beginning.
Yep.
I actually asked
very organised.
to come on our property. They wanted to come on our property and do a biodiversity study and a cultural study where this new trans line's supposedly going to go. And I said, "Oh, fine, you can come on my property as long as my wife and I said was, as long as the Minister for Energy comes along to a community forum with representatives from our local hydro and Tas networks. They're our energy providers in the state, and tells the community and people affected by Marinus and the transmission developments why it's going to be so good for Tasmania." I thought that was fair enough. We're making a pretty big sacrifice for Tasmania and for these, for our own wind farm companies and things. I thought that was fair enough that they could come along and to a community forum and answer questions. And, I was sent a mass-produced, basically, piece of paper with a slogan on it that they didn't even come up with themselves. It said something like "downward pressure on prices," like it was a Coles ad. And I found that pretty insulting that we're making a pretty big sacrifice. Like people like Terry's making a way bigger one than me too, by the way. And then they just thought enough of us to send us a photocopy slogan. Yeah, that's what we got from the Minister. So they're up and about when it comes to having meetings with these. Apparently, they're up and about when it comes to having meetings with these foreign-owned renewable companies, but when it comes to their own constituents, they can't even give us the time of day.
Yeah. Also, on their campaigning, I know it was. I can't remember what year it was, but a couple of years ago they cut the fireworks off for Bernie for New Year's and put that light show on. Remember that? Remember that, Wade, when they did the light show?
Yep.
They actually wrote Marinus in the sky for everyone on New Year's, which I find that is quite a large psyop, in my opinion. It's like happiest time of the year and yay, Marinus in the sky. And I bet probably nobody even knew what Marinus was at that point, to be honest. So, yeah, just another one to throw in there.
What it is, Terry. Yeah.
I'm just going to pop up. We've lost Al. I'm just going to pop up his last comment that we've got him back. Tasmania has been used as the defibrillator and AI data centre for the nation because our stable hydro produce frequency of 50 hertz. As the mainland goes to more wind, solar and battery, their frequency becomes less stable. In a grid collapse, renewables can't restart the grid. Oh, Lord.
Yeah, it's a pretty on board, Al on board, because he's pretty up with that sort of thing, and he
is. Yeah, bit of a shame he can't talk on that too. Like over, I think it was Germany or one of the European countries who have taken on all this solar and wind. This is what Al's saying. They got, I think it's called a brownout. So the system goes down, and the wind and the solar don't have enough oomph to fire back up the whole system again. So they've had to revert to gas or coal to restart the whole grid again. So really, it's a bit of a failure being set up for us, isn't it?
Al, have we got you there? No.
Al's frozen.
Well, that's I'll just mention again, you can go along online to thelight.australia.com and read issue 20 of the newspaper. We had Martine write an article about the Marinus Link being the AI umbilical cord for Tasmania. So people can go along, as I said, to thelight.australia.com and read that online. Where are we as far as fighting back against this? I mean, not only do you have the general public not aware of Marinus at all and the severity of the issues, and then the proponents, not consulting properly, and the government hiding the contract, all these sorts of things. Where are you as far as fighting back?
We've there's obviously platforms like you're putting on today, which is much appreciated, Robin. We've also set up a GoFundMe page to try and recover some legal costs. We're fighting against some pretty heavy campaigners here, so we've got to probably do it in the courts. We need legal representation, and we've got some great ones that are doing this pro bono. So, but also we do have to fund some clever people on our behalf. So we've got a GoFundMe page going. If you click on Save Tasmania from Marinus Link, that'll take you to all the information. And we hope, we really hope we can stop this happening, because it's the legacy we're leaving the next generation isn't a good one in Tasmania, I don't think. I know Terry and Hal will back me up on that. It's sad that they're sneaking all this stuff through, and when it's built, people are going to go, "How the hell did that happen? What are we doing in this state?" I was probably said it the other day to Terry and Al and the crew that What are our kids going to, or our grandkids going to see in 30 years' time when they drive around this state? I mean, they probably won't see any of our wedge-tail eagles because they'll all be gone. And they'll just be looking at all these ugly wind farms and trans lines around the state. And we've got, you know, I know we were in tourism for a little while on the west coast of Tasmania in a little town called Strawn. And gee, it really made us wake up to how beautiful Tasmanian is. Feedback we got from tourists with us. They just come in after their drive up from Hobart to the west coast, or down from up here on the north coast down to Strawn on the west coast. And they'd just be buzzing, They just say how beautiful it is, and so that's what we're trying to protect.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, tourism's one of our biggest industries, isn't it, in Tasmania? One of the biggest incomes.
Yeah, it is.
That damaged for some foreign company to make money off it's not really overly fair either.
No, definitely not.
I'm just going to pop my phone number. Al, you can call. We're just trying to figure out, because Al's got a lot to say and unfortunately he can't talk, so we're trying to figure out how to do it. So Al, just give me a call. I'll have to kick you from the studio because we'll get feedback, but we will be able to listen to you on the phone. Do you have my number already? Anyway, I'll kick Al from the studio. Yes. So have you
one
sorry,
of the things
Wade,
I was talking too is what Tasmanians face with this one, and Terry touched on it earlier. It looks like from energy consultants, like very respected energy consultants like Mark White and John Devereaux and Professor Bruce Mountain. It looks like we're going to have huge electricity price rises in Tasmania because of Marinus. Just the Northwest Transmission Development alone is going to push transmission costs up by double. So, they're basically saying between 30 and 50% Tasmanian households are going to cop for Marinus. It's something we can't afford. Tasmania's socially, and economically, sorry, not socially, but economically bankrupt now. And it's going to be hard for families when they're copping, another few $1,000s on their power bill. And not only that, when you break down the cost of building Marinus and the Northwest Transmission Development, which we don't get any benefit from. I think TasNetwork said we might get a 6% benefit from in Tasmania, but when you look at our power prices going up, a residential household, it's a massive liability. And yet, when you break down the figures, Tasmanians, man, woman, and child pay $2,500 each to build Marinus, and the major beneficiaries. Well, one of the major beneficiaries being Victoria, who TasNetwork say get 28% or 30% of the benefits, so they get, according to them, 5 times more benefit. They pay $180 per person, so we pay over 10 times per person to build a liability for ourselves. And yeah, that's our government. When they negotiated these terms with Dan Andrews and probably Albanese at the time. I mean, after our legal representatives left that meeting, Dan Andrews and Albanese must have high-fived one another, because Tasmania got screwed in that one.
We do have Al on the line. We get there one way or the other at Courage is Secure and Relentless. Al, you are on speakerphone. Take it away.
Yeah, g'day, Robin and everyone else. Takes the best tech. Takes the phone.
Yeah.
It's a wonder I'm not using a landline. Anything with the guys brought up Terry and Wade and stuff, there's a lot of stuff there. I guess a lot of stuff I focused on was around environment, land, and that sort of snippets I could get a hold of. might be this issue, and you did read out something about the defibrillator and our data center was the nation, and I just wanted to spin on things. Mine's more technicalities of it. We did have me up. I saw that in Spain. It's the same thing that happened in Spain earlier last year, delayed 7 or 8 years ago. It's in Broken Hill recently. And it's what concerns me about Tasmania. When you get a change in the frequency, when you get a loading and unloading on your grid, renewable cannot win, and it cannot stabilise the grid. It has to be something like hydrogen. It has to be something like nuclear. Early last year, we nearly lost in Tasmania due to it's being put through this like it's already in existence. Because this conditions were so rampant, nearly close to the grid. The backwards and forwards between us and mainland. It's devastating the damage a lot of this stuff can do environmentally. To what's involved in stuff. At the end of the day, we're parenting our industry and our put at risk due to the increase in renewables on the mainland. We're lucky our main form of electricity is hydro. Hydro is very stable frequency. It's why they want us. I think there's the hydro says cannot exist on the mainland because of wind and trees to be in Tasmania because of it's restart the grid. Very sort of hinted at and sort of asked. It's actually because hydro, nuclear, coal, and America, and they can cope with increases in load, they can decrease, and decreases in load, wind, and this can't. When they collapse, you can't restart again. In South Australia, and in Spain, and in Broken Hill, then relied on outside sources to restart grids. In South Australia's case, it was Victoria's coal. Spain was France's nuclear. In Broken Hill, it was some small diesel generators they had laying around. These are the sort of things economically to the devastation that can happen when we add Marinus Link in the picture.
Just thinking.
Things like the since like Marinus Link was, I was a marine engineer. Whenever you've got any sort of machinery, you have to call it. Usually in the marine, we call it with seawater. So Marinus Link's going to have massive big inverters from the AC from the mainland to DC going across straight to AC coming into Tasmania, vice versa. Each time it produces incredible amounts, it has to be dissipated. You use seawater to do it. Seawater is through heat exchangers. Those heat exchangers with marine growth, unless they're treated with chemicals, that's conflict in the seawater. The bridge we're going to be inverted in Tasmania. We're site because heavily polluted. Everyone's been fantastic. Hey, look, the fish are coming in at once. Maybe just going to destroy them. It's already been seen in numerous places downstream of AI data centres in different countries around the world. Use the cooling water downstream. And again, it's because of chemicals to put into the no one's thinking.
Yeah. Well, didn't you just have in Tasmania the Premier was trying to hide the fact that there was chemicals being put into the water by the salmon?
Antibiotics being used on the salmon. Another major issue. Part that gets me frustrated is there are so many things to Marinus Link. Without Marinus Link, we don't need wind turbines in Tasmania. Without Marinus Link, we don't need solar panels in Tasmania. It's without the AI data sync, and Marinus Link is more not about. It's more about a data transfer cable than it is a transfer cable.
Yeah.
Because they want to build the AI data centers here because it's a cooler environment, more water, more stable electricity. It's not about saving the environment. It's not about saving the community. It's not a thing, guys.
Yeah.
This is slowly and slowly. We're sticking in Tasmania. We don't have to supply all the things with nuclear. People don't things around the world doing their own nuclear. How much more they need.
Yeah.
People actually have no idea the concept of it. We know it. Wise, you add to all this then the environmental impact, human impact of it, the health impact of it.
Mhm.
The whole reason I went down this path and got into this, I wasn't the least bit concerned until we were on the edge of the renewable energy zone. And I worked out the turbines they were planning to put in were all of it in the valley that we look across, which is about 250 metres deep, the valley. The turbines they're talking about are going to be 275 metres tall. It's been bloody hell. A massive input. The way that Wade referred earlier to Robbins Island, which is northwest of us, most of our rain comes from that area. Farmer, if you put both wind turbines, you're going to rain. Because you're taking wind energy, which is kinetic energy, the weather system, converting it to electrical energy, means the wind isn't going to blow as much, which means the rain doesn't come to me. You add to that thing, I think, Martine hinted at the word PFAS in it. PFAS, the BPA and all this, which comes up the blades of the turbines. 1 kilo of BPA will contaminate 10 million litres of water beyond its limits. These turbines are losing between 50 to 200 kilograms of BPA each per year in what they call leading edge erosion. BPA is an endocrine disruptor. So for me, from a farming and a health perspective, I don't want my animals contaminated by BPA because it makes them infertile, causes cancer, it causes all sorts of diseases. From my kids, my grandkids, or anything else comes from this. We're now industrialising our farmland, we're industrialising our bush to produce a poor quality electricity. So we're reliable form of electricity. As an engineer, people call it dirty electricity from solar and because of the way it machinery literally breaks down the anything with an electric motor. Will actually destroy an electric motor faster than anything else. No sense. I wrote down something this morning that they have to now have to declare when their potatoes are grown in solar panels because of the PFAS that's coming off the soil.
Oh, really?
Meats has already been reduced from Victoria to contamination from wind turbines. They meat producer. Technically, I'm required by the Meat and Livestock Association to detail whether my animals have raised their fines.
It's a standard.
They know there's an issue with the PFAS, the BPA, and all the rest of the contamination.
Yeah, that's right. And yet the government persists in continuing to convince Australians that we're going to help the environment with renewables.
Not it will destroy the environment. And anyone else, it's too difficult to going to destroy land. It's not intense started from traditional farming to looking at alternative ways of farming. In the process, they came up with a very astute soil scientist, and she calculated 15 years ago if 2% of Australian farmers changed their farming practice using fertilisers, ploughing, using pesticides, using fungicide, would sequence and that so much more carbon from the air, we would not have to worry about any of Australia's industrial emissions because 2% of farms doing that.
Yeah.
Derived completely. Emissions from coal, from cars, from whatever else. We will not have to single season, not single winter. The irony is, you want to get rid of fertiliser, you want to get rid of pesticides, you want to get rid of fungicides, you want to decrease the amount of water you use. The number one way of doing it is actually increasing CO2 because it generates a whole ecosystem around food, nutrient, synergy.
Robert, can I just butt in there?
Sorry.
Yep, we've just got Wade. Yep, go ahead, Wade.
Ours not coming through, Robin. He might. I suppose you've got a phone, him on the phone there, but it's not. I don't know if Terry can hear.
Yeah, it's not kind of the odd words dropping out here and there, and sort of some of it makes sense, and then there's fair bits that I don't think many people can understand.
No, that's all right. What we'll do, I don't like to run any longer, especially if we're having difficulties. What we'll do is I will end the show with playing a video that Wade had very kindly sent through, and this is a meeting where all three of you spoke. When was the meeting held?
I think it was in October.
Okay. Yep. So we'll end the show with that. Thank you, Al. I'll have to say bye.
Thank you for listening.
All right. Talk to you soon. Wade and Terry, is there final comments you'd like to leave with the audience before we end the show? Maybe Terence, you want to start off?
Am I on? Yeah. Yeah, I'd just like to say thank you for putting this on, and yeah, hopefully we can get some and thank you to all the listeners that's listening, and hopefully we can get some good get the GoFundMe thing happening, and hopefully we can save not only Tasmania but help save Australia from this so-called green energy debacle we're in. So yeah, and just like to say thanks to everyone. So
Thanks for joining us, Wade.
Yeah, I reiterate what I said. Yeah, thanks, Robin and Martine, for giving us a platform, and thanks for the people listening. And we really hope that this gives people a bit more information, and maybe that they could help with our GoFundMe page, Save Tasmania from Marinus Link. So yeah, cheers everyone, and all the best. Thank you.
My pleasure. We've got the GoFundMe link is in the comments below, and also on the bottom of the screen. As you can see, you can go along there and check it out. Thank you, everybody, for joining me on a Sunday for Relentless, special episode Marinus Link. Talk to your friends about it, and as I said, go along to thelightaustralia.com issue 20 and read the article there about Marinus Link, and share it with your friends. And as I said, we're going to go out with a video. I think it's about 12 minutes long, and all three gentlemen are at this meeting speaking about it. And of course, to get there, we have to screen the share. Any good episode with Courage is a Cure involves screening the share. So we'll put that up. And thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate it very much. And I'll let you go, and I'll play the video.
thank you.
Thanks, everyone. All right, let's press play and
to come and have a talk and
Thanks,
tell
Rob.
you about the experiences, not only as a farmer, but as somebody that understands what's going on.
Thanks, Malcolm. Thanks for inviting me to speak. Yeah, as Malcolm said, I'm a farmer. I'm fourth generation at Sheffield. My family's been farming that land for 130 years. And I hope everyone can hear me. And I, along with, the 270 other farmers that are going to be affected by the Northwest Transmission Line development, we're all sort of in it together, and trying to get the best deal we can for our families and families into the future. Probably not going to speak so much today on the personal effects to my farm. I think this is a forum far more important than that, and I'd like to speak about the effects it's going to have on all of us Tasmanians now and well into the future. After all, this development's going to be here for probably 70 or 80 years. And, just to start with, as a farmer, I see it is my job to make sure that I leave that farm better when I'm finished than what it was when I started. And I dare say most farmers use the same mindset. And, my dad and my grandfather and my great-grandfather, that's the concept they used and the philosophy they used. And, so everything I do on the farm, every development, I sort of go and think, well, is it going to be economically and sustainable, economically and environmentally sustainable? And is it going to make lives better for myself and future generations on that farm? And I often have a little conversation with myself where I imagine, maybe my grandkids as adults and what they're going to think of the decisions I'm making now and what sort of a legacy I'm going to leave them on the farm. And often that can be the catalyst. It seems odd, but that can be the catalyst of whether I'll carry out, maybe a new dam storage or a new fence line. That unborn person can have so much effect on my thinking. And I know farmers are odd and we all think in different ways, but that's how I do a lot of my planning at home. And with Marinus, I think it's much the same, and we maybe should be applying that type of thinking to Marinus and the Northwest Transmission development. We should be thinking along the lines of what it's going to do to future generations that don't get a say in it now, but it's going to obviously affect in the future. And I only got thinking the other day of, how I'm going to explain to my unborn grandkids in 30 years' time when they're adults why we made this decision and why it went ahead. And I think we're all going to have to make, we're going to have to explain ourselves one day to the future generations. Everyone in this room will have to come up with a reason why. And I've tried to make it positive and be as objective as possible at the same time. And I think that conversation's probably going to start with the idea and the concept of Marinus and the transmission line development. You're going to say, well, the federal government decided that it'd be a great idea for us to build an extension lead worth $3.5 billion to the mainland. And we send a fair chunk, a big chunk of our clean, green, reliable green energy to them. And in return, they send to us their majority fossil fuel generated energy back into Tasmania. And even though it's a big deal for us to send that much power to the mainland, it's only going to make up 5% of their needs. And yet the federal government's telling us that 5% is going to decarbonise the national grid, and that's why we're doing it. That's going to be a pretty hard deal to convey to the grandkids, no doubt about that. And of course, the federal government, along with the National Energy Market Regulators, has done studies on this, and they've found that Tasmania will reap a full 6% of the benefits of Marinus. Now, I think that's been generous. I honestly think it's a liability to Tasmania, but they had to put a positive in there. So they've gave us 6%, and that was at the start of the project. So explain all this to your grandkids. You hope they've got a bit of your genetics, and they well, you hope they're smart enough and creative, and that, you know, they question things they've been told. So obviously they're going to say back to you, well, you know, what could we have had, you know, if we kept the energy in the state? What did we give up? We've made a lot of sacrifices. And you're going to say, well, we gave up the crown jewels as far as, you know, renewable energy. We gave up our carbon negative status, which we've had since 2014. You know, that's something that's very, very unique in the world. Only 3 other places have got that, with over a population of over 500,000, and we're one of them. We could have used that. We could have used that to entice new, clever, labour-intensive industries into this state. It might be something we've never seen before. It might have been the movie industries. It might have been top-end fashion houses. Might have been cosmetic companies. But all companies that would be able to leverage off the fact that they were making their product in such a beautiful, clean, green state that actually made more oxygen than carbon dioxide, which is, you know, unheard of in the rest of the world as far as industrialised places go. But we made a huge sacrifice in the name of the nation and the country, and we gave that up for all this dirty energy we're going to be importing back into the state. And, you know, obviously your grandchild's going to think, well, wow, we've taken a big hit for the rest of the country. You know, we're all heroes. You know, gosh, we've done a lot. Surely the federal government would have given everyone a medal, you know, and early retirements, and they would have fixed all the potholes in our roads. Well, they're going to be sadly mistaken, because you're going to say, well, you know, you're right there, and our Liberal government sent their best to Canberra. They sent a posse to Canberra of their best delegates to negotiate on our behalf. And they went to Canberra and negotiated on our behalf. They came back to us with the news that we would be paying 27% of the running costs of Marinus. And not only that we would also have to hook the bill for the Northwest Transmission development of $1 billion, which can't operate without Marinus and vice versa. So in actual fact, when you factor that in, we're probably paying close to half the cost of the running costs of Marinus. For a 6% benefit, we're paying nearly half the costs. And that's what this Liberal Party delegation negotiated on our behalf. And, you know, you think about your grandchildren as adults. Hopefully we will have them in 30 years' time. And they're going to drive around our beautiful state, and they're going to want to look around. And they're going to come back to you and they're going to say, gosh, it's a lovely state, it's a beautiful state. But what's with all these wind turbines? There's thousands of them. And don't get me wrong, I think there will be in 30 years' time, there's a very good chance there will be thousands of these wind turbines. And they're going to say, gosh, you know, at least we own them. At least we own them, and we're getting something back for Marinus. You know, we might be getting a bit of coin back into the state. Well, they're going to be sadly mistaken again, because all those wind farms are owned by offshore corporates. And those offshore corporates are getting all the use of all the infrastructure we've paid for. The whole developments across the coast here, the $3.5 million Marinus cable, they're able to use all that infrastructure to sell their power into the national grid at the ultimate price, and yet they don't pay 1 red cent towards it. And free access across all our farms, so they can sell their power across our farms into the national grid. And not only that,
The grandkids are going to be really disappointed when they hear that Ruth Forest's office has uncovered their dirty secret, that they've been paying these offshore wind companies tens of millions of dollars in subsidies. And her office went digging because the state government wouldn't tell them what was going on, and they went digging into the financials. And one company in particular, the Chinese majority-owned Wool North Wind Holdings, in a 12-month period, were given over $30 million in subsidies by us, the Tasmanian taxpayer. Over $30 million. And that's a disgrace. And, you know, you'd like to think that the grandkids are enjoying their trip around, but they're going to come back to you and they're going to say, wow, saw this beautiful state, but, you know, we didn't see any of these eagles you've been telling me used to fly around years ago. And you're going to have to tell them, well, our government has given these offshore wind companies licence to basically drive these beautiful birds into extinction. And not only our beautiful birds of prey are going to cop it, and you might think I'm exaggerating about this, but Cattle Hill, the Chinese-owned Cattle Hill wind farm, when they built that, when they developed it, they promised us that the technology was so good that the birds would be protected. And they gave us a guarantee that there'd be no eagles that were killed. And yet, already in the short time that farm's been in operation, there's been 8 eagles killed. That'd be all the eagles in the vicinity of that farm. All the breeding pairs, they're gone. And just imagine when the whole state's covered with these farms, what's going to happen to our eagle population. And not only that, you've got the beautiful migratory shorebirds flying all the way from the Northern Hemisphere to Robbins Island. What happens to those birds when they get there and there's blades swinging around at 340 kilometres an hour, you know? We're not giving them much of a chance. So it's going to be a hard conversation for all of us with our grandkids in 30 years' time. And, you know, and they're going to wonder, why are we paying so much debt, Pop? You know, what's all this debt about? And you'll be able to tell them that our current government, in their wisdom, by the end of this decade, during their tenure, will have run up a $30 billion debt. $30 billion we're going to leave for our grandkids to have to pay off on our behalf. And, you know, you do the maths on that, and just the interest rates alone over a 12-month period would be enough to pay for that stadium in Hobart. And we're going to have to pay that every 12 months just to service that loan that this government's run up. It won't be us paying it, by the way, it'll be our grandkids. So, you know, just to finish up, I'd just like to say that, and ask the question to these pollies we've got down there representing us now, you know, whether they think that all these party donations they're getting from these big corporates and all of our money that they're spending off the back of it today, is that going to be worth the legacy they're going to leave to their grandkids tomorrow? And that's my question to them. So thanks very much.
So I'll now call on Wade.
Alrighty, everybody. So that was Wade speaking there. Thank you all very much for joining me today on Sunday for this special episode about Marinus Link. As I said, please go along to thelightaustralia.com, issue 20. You can read it online. You can also order back copies. It's this issue with Caligula Epstein on the front. Because, you know, the article in here about the Marinus Link does talk about it being the AI umbilical cord. So, you know, this is a great way to pass on information to people not everybody has time to sit down like people have done today and listen to people speak. So this is another option for getting the information out there. So that's the lightaustralia.com. All right, everybody. So once again, thank you all very much. Last comment from Sylvia. My husband has often said Tassie should be a tax-free offshore zone. Would definitely be one of the safest and biggest and most stable offshore havens on the planet. Thank you, Wayne. I appreciate it. And thank you to Terry, Elle and Wade for joining me, and also Martine Shepherd. All righty, everybody. Let's play the outro. And once again, thank you all very much for joining me on a Sunday. Enjoy the rest of your day. Stay relentless. I'll see you later.